So someone came looking, Frieza said offhandedly after hearing the monologue from Jiro. He said it with a smile as he saw the emotion on the androids' faces before they quickly schooled it. Jiro seemed to catch his misstep and quickly quietened as he glared at Frieza, and before he could so much as blink a bolt of electricity was by his side and quickly retreated. He searched around his body for any damage before glaring at the offender Goku. Goku was standing back on the other side of the cave now holding the remote curiously. Everyone hadn't been paying attention, but Goku had noticed the look of fear on the androids' faces when Jiro pointed the remote at them. The androids watched him cautiously with a look of apprehension. Goku could see how tense they were as he had the remote in his hand. Frieza seemed to ease as he walked back to Goku with his back turned to the androids without seemingly a care in the world. Frieza stared at the remote as he stood by Goku. Toymaker? What does this little device do? Frieza asked Jiro, but the doctor seemingly didn't want to answer as his eyes frantically looked around for an escape. It's a remote detonator, 18 answered with slight worry in her voice, and 16 was watching very closely for what would happen. This would decide what he would do next. So if I click this button, then you go bye-bye. Frieza said the last sentence with a smile and he could see the fear on their faces. It brought a smile to his own. With lightning speed, his finger rushed towards the button but was quickly stopped by Goku, who stared at him hard. Frieza smirked at him as he pulled back his arm and stood next to Goku with his chin raised. Goku had seen Frieza going for the button and had quickly rushed to stop him from clicking the button. The smirk that Frieza gave him seemed to put him at ease regardless of how menacing it was to onlookers. 17-18 felt their blood go cold as they saw Frieza go for the button but saw Goku stop him from clicking it, and the alien had the audacity to smile about it. 16 just watched closely and then noticed Jiro trying to make his way toward the door. 18 saw him and quickly rushed over, grabbing him by the neck as she lifted him up as her hands clutched his throat. And where do you think you're going? Jiro grunted as he tried to remove her grip from his throat. 18 wanted to kill him right now. There was no guarantee that the alien and Goku were going to let them go. She could just kill him. She heard him before she saw him. The heavy footsteps that hid just how quietly he could move. He wanted her to know he was there. Drop him, 18, Android 16 said in his robotic monotone voice. Why he imprisoned us? He imprisoned you. We should just break him right now. Her cool exterior was fading, masked by rage and fear. All it would take is a simple press and she could take off his head, but one thing stuck out most. One thing he said. Someone had come looking. That was something he had never mentioned before with all their years with them. Who was looking for us? She asked, the anger laced deep in her voice as she pressed her fingers into his neck and she could hear his mental frame groan. I said who was looking? She said, her eyes meeting his. He had the gall to smile at her, and 17, whose attention had now been drawn. Even Goku and Frieza were now watching closely. Why would I tell you? Jiro said with a smirk. You're supposed to obey me. But no worries. Your time will come. 18 raised her fist to strike him and immediately felt grabbed by the large figure behind her. I'm going to have to ask you to stop now, 18. Or I might have to intervene. Jiro gave another smirk. See? Ha ha ha, this is what a loyal creation should be like. This is why you will always be failures. No wonder you disappointed your father. The sentence was quickly followed by a crunch right hook from 18, and 16 suddenly let go of hand. Jiro stared incredulously at the android. 16? How could you let her do that? Jiro shouted, clutching the side of his face as he glared at the android that resembled his son. What did you say about my father? 18 asked, seemingly not caring about the exchange between the two as she raised her hand to strike again. The doctor was bleeding from his lip as he started laughing maniacally. What makes you think you have a right to know? He said, glaring at the two androids. But then 16 opened his mouth. Bradley Martin, age 35, deceased. That grabbed 17's attention, and the shock he could see from the doctor's face shows that he was onto something. 16 Who is that? 18 asked, but she already somewhat knew the answer from the way that Jiro's face was starting to pale. Your father, he was searching for you for a few years, till he was terminated. Searching. 17 and 18 were trying to make sense of what he was saying. He must have read their faces as he continued. You were in the juvenile system. That is how Dr. Jiro found you. You had on record running away from home because they are nothing but wannabe criminals, Jiro shouted before he was quickly shut up by another right hook from 18. Why did we have a record for running away? Asked curious and holding back his anger. Sure, he wasn't human anymore, but all the strength was amazing and he didn't think he would want to give it back. 18 seemed angry though. Very angry about being robbed of a life she couldn't remember. The physiological reports obtained by Jiro indicated misdirected pursuit of freedom and ambition. You were bored, that's why your father was trying to get you help to get you back on track. Jiro didn't know about him and acted hastily. Jiro was dreading every word that was coming out of 16's mouth, but every time he tried to open his mouth a fist from 18 shut him up. After luring you with an opportunity to earn some money, Jiro finally had obtained test subjects. But it wasn't long till your father was all over the news desperately looking for you. Jiro was shaking his head for 16 to stop. 16 I'm ordering you to stop, Jiro said with a glare as he was trying to lash out at the android. I am your father, I am your creator. 18 punched him again. 16 was doing his best to fight off all the commands plaguing his software, some asking him to engage Goku and the others to protect Jiro and eliminate 18. Dr. Jiro had been requiring more genetic material to refine his design of you, and cell growth would be too time consuming. 18 didn't want to hear where this story was going because with growing dread she had an idea. Jiro lured him, saying he had information on your whereabouts. He looked at 18 and she stared into his eyes open-mouthed. Even 17's attention had been glimpsed and harvested him for organic matter. 16 said it so matter-of-factly that the way the temperature dropped in the room would have been unnoticed. 18's emotions were conflicted. At first, she thought they had just been built as machines from the beginning, but then finding out they were humans had been a stab, and now finding out someone was looking for them had been worse. Without a moment to spare she said screw the consequences as she aimed and fired as much power as she could muster at Jiro. The air pressure was enough to blast the mountain open, and she kept firing after the large blast. She kept firing till she began to feel the strain on her arms and 17's hand on her shoulder. You okay, sis? Yeah, I'm fine, she said, huffing even though she didn't really need to breathe. Good, because we got another situation to deal with, he said, throwing his glance at Goku and Frieza, who watched unexpectedly still with a remote in hand even after the blast. And emerging from the dust of the blast stood 16 unscathed, staring hard at 18.